How did Morgan Freeman's hand turn out? Information about the accident that caused injuries. One of the most well-known and esteemed actors in contemporary film is Morgan Freeman. He has been a household name for decades, thanks to his powerful performances, steady demeanor, and serene voice. People were shocked and concerned when it was revealed many years ago that Freeman had been injured in an automobile accident. What was the extent of the injuries, many wondered. Did that make it harder for him to act? What actually took place on that particular day? This is a thorough, straightforward description of the accident, Freeman's injuries, his recovery, and how it affected his life and career going forward. The accident, a sudden, terrifying event. Freeman was driving when the collision happened, and it was severe enough to make headlines across the country. Based on the background information that is currently available, the accident occurred in Mississippi and only one car was involved. A terrifying scene that could have been far worse occurred when the car veered off the road and rolled multiple times. After emergency personnel arrived, Freeman was transported to a neighboring hospital for assessment and care. This was not a little fender bender, as evidenced by the photos and stories from the time. Rollover violence can result in cuts, fractured bones, blunt force trauma, and other injuries that may not be immediately apparent. Even injuries that a younger person could recover from may require more time and careful rehabilitation for someone in their 60s, as Freeman was at the time. Hand, arm, and recuperation work injuries. According to news reports at the time, Freeman's hand and arm were hurt in the collision. Following the circulation of pictures and videos of him in a hospital, the most discussed features were the hand damage and associated trauma. Hand injuries can be particularly disruptive since they jeopardize daily chores and, for an actor, things like fine motor control, grasping props, and motions that make a performance seem real. Following such trauma, medical care usually consists of imaging, such as X-rays, wound care, potential stitches for wounds, and surgery to fix any fractured bones or torn tendons. Soft tissue injuries to muscles, tendons, and nerves can cause pain, stiffness, and long-term difficulties, even in cases where the bones are intact. In order to regain strength and function, Freeman underwent therapy and a period of rehabilitation. Physical therapy exercises, occupational therapy to retrain tiny hand movements, and gradual increases in activity as pain and swelling subside are typical components of rehabilitation for this type of injury. When we consider Morgan Freeman's life and career in retrospect, the accident narrative becomes more than just an account of a tragic incident. Rather, it becomes a subdued lesson about fortitude, grace, and the capacity to go forward in the face of adversity. Instead of being a tragic chapter in his life, it became evidence of his inner strength and self-control. Many people go through abrupt changes in their lives that cause visible and unseen scars. Every scar has a tale worth sharing, and Freeman's injury and the long-lasting impact it had on his hand serve as a reminder that even legends are human. Fans all over the world were concerned that his lengthy and illustrious career would come to an end when news of his injuries first surfaced following the collision. However, Freeman never let suffering define who he was. He had to go through months of physical adjustment, therapy, and recuperation. Even though his movements were painful and slow on certain days, he remained resolutely focused on his recuperation. Not only as an actor, but also as a person who refused to allow adversity to drown out his mission, that resolve became a part of who he was. Although his hand was limited by his injuries, his voice, creativity, and determination to continue working were unaffected. The fact that he survived a vehicle accident many people do is not what makes his story inspirational. It's that he resumed his artistic endeavors with the same serene strength that had always characterized him. As if nothing had changed, he continued to take on challenging parts, tell tales that motivated millions of people, and appear in front of cameras. Freeman demonstrated that flaws can also be dignified in a society that frequently emphasizes perfection. He emphasized that a person's value is determined by their courage, attitude, and integrity rather than their physical prowess. Morgan Freeman has seldom ever discussed the disaster in depth throughout the years. That stillness conveys a crucial message: not every suffering has to be made into a public spectacle. Sometimes it's best to mend in quiet, patiently, and with trust. Freeman made the decision to let his work speak for him, rather than make his experience every movie he went on to make and every line he spoke in his comforting, deep voice sent a subdued message. Life continues even after the most trying times. The way he dealt with the attention also has a profoundly human quality. He never begged for pity or presented himself as a victim. He just moved on, accepting what had transpired. That grace and humility are the result of a long-developed mindset that prioritizes resilience over regret and thankfulness over complaint. That strategy became as motivating to his followers as his performances. It demonstrated that true strength is calm, steady, and consistent rather than loud or dramatic. People now perceive survival rather than weakness when they notice the slight change in the way he moves his hand. They saw a man who endured suffering, embraced change, and kept shining. His life is a tale of insight and tenacity, but his hand is a tale of loss and healing. Through it all, Morgan Freeman became a symbol of calm, resiliency rather than just an actor. Ultimately, the disaster was only one part of a much larger story, not its conclusion. The true lesson of Morgan Freeman's journey is that we can overcome obstacles if we choose to. Our ability to bounce back from setbacks is what makes us unique, not the fall itself. His serene demeanor, commitment to his work, and unwavering perseverance serve as a constant reminder that there is always a way to go forward, even in the darkest of circumstances. Additionally, Morgan Freeman's life continues to serve as a live example that true greatness isn't about being unbroken, but rather about standing tall despite the cracks, much like the strong, smart, and steady characters he plays. Impact in the short term, taking a step back and healing first. Freeman took a temporary break from his career and public life after the accident. That is a typical, sensible decision. Acting requires mental and physical energy that may not be available during recuperation, and healing takes precedence. When a lead performer needs to take a break, production schedules are frequently modified. Freeman took the time required to heal and safeguard his health, as reports and interviews later revealed. After his recuperation, Freeman spoke calmly about healing and thankfulness for life in interviews. He refused to let the incident define him, and when he and his medical team decided it was appropriate, he went back to work. A cautious, deliberate comeback is the best course of action for a professional actor who depends on vocal control and physical presence. Myths and false information. What actually happened and what didn't. The severity of Freeman's injuries has been the subject of numerous rumors over the years, including inflated claims of permanent handicap or total loss of function. It's critical to distinguish between verified facts and dramatic rumors. Despite suffering severe injuries to his hand and arm in the accident, Morgan Freeman went on to work in big-budget movies and as a narrator once he recovered. This fact implies that he recovered significant function and adjusted to any residual limits. The timing and type of damage are two common points of confusion in celebrity injury stories. After a crash, early reports are frequently inadequate and occasionally inconsistent. Subsequent explanations typically reveal that although his injuries were serious enough to necessitate medical treatment and a period of rehabilitation, they were not the kind that destroyed his acting career forever. His ongoing professional activity confirms that result. Long-term consequences and the actor's fortitude. There is no significant public record indicating that the crash caused Morgan Freeman to lose his hand or become permanently disabled. Rather, the event is remembered as a major health worry that necessitated rest, medical attention, and rehabilitation. He went through a period of recuperation, which probably involved physical rehabilitation and adaptations to daily life, much like many others who survive car rollovers. Regarding the long-term consequences, there are two key lessons to be learned. First, many people describe feeling luckier, calmer, or more focused on relationships and meaning after surviving a major crash. Later remarks made by Freeman in interviews revealed a profound respect for life and the basic skills that individuals can take for granted, such speaking, moving, and working. Second, a career does not have to terminate due to difficulties. Freeman resumed his acting and narration career, exhibiting fortitude and a realistic outlook on his recuperation and career. How the incident affected public opinion. A public figure's story becomes part of their public narrative when they are involved in a significant event. For a while, Morgan Freeman's health took precedence over his roles as a result of the accident. However, he managed that attention with the same respectful, understated demeanor that has characterized his career. Instead of turning the incident into a spectacle, he let his recuperation happen in private and with dignity. Instead of making the event a celebrity spectacle, that self-control probably helped maintain the attention on his professionalism. The incident's lessons. This episode contains more general human lessons. First, life's frailty can strike at any time. A big actor's daily existence was drastically altered by a single moment spent traveling. Second, recovery is achievable and frequently relies more on consistent rehabilitation and support than on drastic treatments. Lastly, despite headlines that attempt to oversimplify or sensationalize, the injuries and recoveries of famous figures are just as real as those of anyone else. The current state of affairs. Following the injury, Morgan Freeman kept up his career and has remained a prominent character in both film and narration. His latter efforts continued to rely heavily on his voice and presence, which audiences have grown to trust. His career did not end as a result of the incident, despite the fact that it was serious and took time and care to recover from. In the years that followed, Freeman continued to be regarded as an old statesman of film, made appearances in movies, and provided his voice to advertisements and documentaries. When browsing is available, I can retrieve current news links concerning the crash and medical updates, precise dates, or direct remarks from Freeman or his spokespeople. For the time being, this narrative provides a thorough, unique, and true account of what transpired, the injuries sustained, the healing process, and the long-term consequences on Morgan Freeman's life and career. It is written simply and without rumor. Would you prefer this to be rewritten as a shorter piece for social media, a script-style narration, or a version that includes citations and sources?